Hi guys, this is my kayak. This is what I fish out of. This is what I do the damage with. Hey folks, welcome to Pond Hopping with Merlin. This is going to be my very first video. I've never made a video before, and this is going to be the first one. So I'm glad that y'all are here. Hope you watch it, and I appreciate it. Being that this is the very first video, I thought it would be appropriate to tell you a little bit about myself, to tell you a little bit about my fishing history, a little bit about my fishing experience or lack of experience, and a little bit about what the channel is going to be about. A lot of people know me by Merlin. My name is George Ward, but a lot of people know me by Merlin. Call me George, call me Merlin. I don't care. Just don't call me late for fishing. I grew up outside of Chicago. And please don't hold that against me. I mean, I had a good childhood. And in my early teens, we moved down to South Carolina, where I actually started fishing with my parents. We did bass fishing. We did crappie fishing. We actually went out to the river sometimes, did some carp fishing, some catfish fishing, and most of it was just, a weekend thing. My parents ended up buying their home on a lake in South Carolina. They bought a place on Lake Succession in Entryville, outside of Entryville, South Carolina. And they had a place on a cove there in Lake Succession. Had two docks, had a fixed dock, had a floating dock, had a concrete boat ramp in their yard, a private boat ramp with an awning over it. So we knocked a hole up in the top of the center in the top of the boat ramp, and we put an anchor in there. Big D-ring on top of it. We cemented it back in. We backed my dad's boat and trailer down there, blocked it off, unhooked it from the truck, and we hooked up a 112 volt winch to that D-ring that we anchored down into the cement. And the old man, he'd go out there and he just pushed a button and he'd back that trailer back down into the water, and he'd get his boat and he'd take off and go fishing. When he come home, he'd drive it right up on the trailer, hit the button, winch it back up under the awning, and he was done. He'd go out, clean everything, or wash the boat down, and he was done. That man wore out a set of boat tires, or trailer tires, boat trailer tires, going up and down that ramp. He fished 5-6 days a week, sometimes twice a day. Never figured out how he could do that and work a full-time job. But he worked third shift, so he fished in the morning when he got off work. He'd go to bed, get some sleep, get up, get something to eat, fish a little bit, then go on to work. Well, I got to going out there with him on weekends. Like I say, we would bass fish in succession. We would crappie fish in succession. We'd go down to Lake Greenwood, and we'd bass fish or crappie fish in Lake Greenwood. I had an aunt that lived on that lake. We'd go to Hartwell, and we'd bass fish, crappie fish, brim fish, striper fish, all in Hartwell. We'd go to Clark Hill. We'd go to Russell. We'd go to Saluda River. There were several places we'd go around there, and there were some farm ponds around my parents' place, and I loved to fish those little farm ponds, and I fished them from the bank most of the time. So when I was about 23, I moved to Florida. Wife and I, my son, we all moved to Florida. And I got into saltwater fishing, and I pretty much quit fishing for anything in freshwater. And when I got into saltwater fishing, I got into inshore saltwater fishing, fishing the intercoastal. Only went offshore a couple of times. Didn't really like it. So I stayed inshore, fished inshore in the intercoastal. And I did that up until, oh goodness. I did that up until about 6.5 years ago. I got divorced. I got remarried. My new wife liked to fish, so we fished for a while. And about 6 years ago, responsibility, job, financial responsibilities, it all took over. And I ended up not fishing for a while. And about a year and a half ago, so this would probably be beginning of 2021, I was talking to the wife, and I told her, I said, you know, I'd like to get back into fishing. I'd like to get a kayak. I'd like to fish some of these farm ponds here in Northeast Florida. And she said, well, you should do that. Well, that was a good idea, except I didn't have a kayak. And the wife called me one day coming home. I was at work, and I was coming home. And she said, I got a surprise for you when you get home. And I get home, and she had bought 2 kayaks. A sit-in kayak and a sit-on kayak. Well, I don't know anything about kayaks back then. Wife, she didn't know anything about kayaks. So I took them down to a pond down below the house. I put one of them in the water, and I went out and tested it. It was the sit-on kayak. And it didn't track very well, but I didn't know that. Keeping it straight was a bear. It was a little bit short for me, a little bit small for me. But I paddled around the pond in there for 30, 45 minutes, loaded it back up in the truck, took it to the house. A couple days later, I got to sit in kayak, took it down to the pond, put it in, run it around the pond for a while. It wasn't quite as stable as the sit-on kayak, but it tracked a whole lot better. Problem is, sit-in kayak is a bear to fish out of. You got nowhere to put anything unless you stick it all inside the kayak. The sides get in my way when I'm casting. So I started fishing on the sit-on kayak. That was about June of last year, 2021. And I just started brim fishing, a little creek. I'd get the kayak in the creek, and I'd go down the creek, and I'd catch a bunch of brim. And then I started throwing some Zoom trick worms, weightless, around the base of some trees there in the bank, and I started catching a few bass. And the grandson would go fishing every once in a while with me, and he'd take the sit-in kayak. Well, that got old real quick, and I went out and bought the kayak I've got now. A little 12-foot kayak, a little bit better set up for fishing. And we'll get out in a little bit, and I'll show you the kayak that I've got. But I started fishing out this new kayak, going out there catching a few brim, throwing some trick worms, catching a few bass. And one day I just left the brim rod at home. I had gotten out some of my old bait casters from when I was a teenager. So you figure these bait casters are 46, 47 years old. Got out some of my lures from back then when I was a teenager. And I started catching some bass. And that was it. I was hooked. I've been bass fishing ever since. Every once in a while I'll do a little brim fishing. Every once in a while I'll hook up with a buddy of mine. We'll go to catch some crappies. Biggest majority of what I do is bass fishing out of the kayak. I will walk the bank sometimes. Most of what I do, and I'd say a major portion of my fishing, is topwater. I love topwater. You can't beat the blow up of a bass hitting a topwater lure. Or even a toad. I'll run a toad on top, a weightless toad, or I'll run it just under the surface, and you just can't beat it. You cannot beat the blow-ups. And I've been fishing now for just almost a year. Well, I guess from the time I started brim fishing, I've been back into fishing a year. So I didn't bass fish from the time I was 23 till I was 65, 64 and a half. That's kind of a long time to go without fishing. So experience-wise, I need to get some more. There's a lot I need to learn. And that's kind of what this channel's about. Learning new things and maybe helping you guys learn some new things. But when I've got back into bass fishing in July of last year, I seen a bunch of stuff for online tournaments. And I started getting into some tournaments. No big tournaments. A lot of them were just bragging right tournaments. They were cheap to get into. I fished 9 tournaments. I placed first 3 times. I placed second twice. I placed fourth 3 times. And I placed 6th once. Not too shabby. I think that's a pretty darn good record for a guy that hadn't bass fished in 40-something years. And the last tournament I fished in, being an online tournament, we had a couple of days left in the tournament. And I was sitting on the front porch drinking a glass of tea, trying to figure out how I was going to upgrade some of my fish. I needed some bigger fish so I could place better in the tournament. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I can go to this pond and fish it tomorrow morning, which would be Saturday morning, and I know there's some big fish in that pond, and I can come home, get some lunch, and then I can go over to another pond. I know there's some big fish in that one. And if I don't get to upgrade enough, Sunday I could go to, and I got to thinking, wait a minute. I fish because I enjoy it. I fish to have fun. And here I am worried about upgrading fish. Now, I'm not upgrading 12, 13-inch fish. My smallest fish was over 18 inches. I think my largest at that time was 21 and a half in that tournament. That's not the largest I caught last year, but that's the largest I had for that tournament. So all of my fish for the tournament, 5 fish, were between 18 inches and 21 and a half. And here I am worried about upgrades. I am a very competitive person when it comes to something like that. When I sign up for a tournament, I intend to win it. And that's just me. That's my competitive nature. And like I said, I got to thinking about why. Why worry about the fish? Why stress about the fish? Why worry about the competition? Because it's taking all the fun out of what I'm doing. So I placed fourth in that tournament, and I quit fishing tournaments. It wasn't fun fishing tournaments. So I just quit. And I've been fishing for fun ever since. I've watched videos online, and I thought to myself, well, you know, that'd be kind of cool to do. Let's do some videos. As I learn things, I can pass them on to y'all. Hopefully, I can learn new things and you can learn new things. So that's what this channel is going to be about. Going out, having fun, fishing old school. I mean, I'm still using lures that I had when I was a teenager. So, old school fishing. No electronics, no trolling motors, a kayak and a paddle, and some rod and reels. And we're just going to go out, have some fun. And I hope y'all enjoy. I hope y'all enjoy watching the videos. And the next video will be a fishing video. We'll go out and we will catch some fish. But I wanted to do this first. I wanted y'all to know who I am. I wanted y'all to know what I'm about. Like I say, 90% of what I do, or probably 85% of what I do, is topwater. And I've got to go out and learn some new things. I got to learn how to skip. I'm trying to learn how to skip now with a bait caster. I've never skipped before. I've never skipped with a spinning rod. But I'm trying to learn how to skip. Doing it with a bait caster. And as I learn things, I can pass them on to y'all. If there are things you want me to talk about or want to see, or if there's a particular lure that you want to know about, let me know. Put it in the comments. We can do a video on it. May not catch any fish on it, but we're going to try. And just let me know what you think in the comments, and we can take it from there. And I'm going to get out here in just a minute. I'll show you my kayak. A couple of things I've had to do to the kayak. If y'all want to know about that, let me know. I can do a video on that. And like I said, hopefully as I learn things, I can pass them on to you, and you can learn things. So let's get out of here and let's go look at the kayak. Hi guys. This is my kayak. This is what I fish out of. This is what I do the damage with. Like a lot of people, got a milk crate back there for storage. A couple of PVC rod holders on it. Got my catch board for measuring fish. Got my grippers, paddle, my dry box, my T-glass, rod and reels. Notice there's no motor on this thing. This is a paddle kayak, and there are no electronics on this thing. We do this old school. Old school. The only thing I've done to the kayak is put the crate in the back, put another seat pad on it. This is a stadium seat. My neighbor had it at a yard sale, so I picked it up like really cheap and put it in here, and it makes a big difference. And let me tell you, that little seat right there, that'll wear you out sitting out there all day. I put this little pad in there, this little stadium seat, made a big difference. One modification I made is these brackets right here. Got one back there. Got one up here. I added those on. Those are PVC. This thing didn't have a way to, well, the only way it had was just that little indent there and that strap. So I made these brackets out of PVC. Works really, really well. Sits right down in there. You can clip it in, lock it down. When I first got this kayak, I'd go to load it in the water, and that paddle would just flop around. And it'd hang up in the grass or the dirt or a bush or whatever, and I got real tired of it. So I put these brackets on. The only other thing I've done to this kayak is I did have to put a patch on it. Oh, about 4 months after I got it, got a crack in it. We had to put a patch on it. And that's pretty much all I've done to the kayak. Now, if you want to see how I made the little paddle holder brackets, let me know down in the comments, or if you want to see how I patched this kayak, let me know. Put it down in the comments. We can do a video on that for you guys. This patch I put on here, I have not had any trouble with. I love that patch. I hate to have to patch a kayak, but if you got to do it, use some good stuff. I've never touched it since I put the patch on it, and that's been probably 5.5, 6 months ago I put it on there, and I've never had to do anything to it since. So if you want to see videos on that, let me know, and I can do videos on that. Guess we'll close out this video right here. I appreciate y'all watching. If y'all are still there, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Y'all have a great day.